Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I painted Huntress, Helena Bertinelli, from the Batman Gotham City Chronicles game by Monolith Games. So as a fierce and independent vigilante, Huntress brings a bold presence to Gotham streets. Her miniature really captures her dynamic pose with a flowing cape and the distinctive purple and black costume, making her a visually striking figure on the tabletop. I'm going to show you step by step through coloring, base coloring, shading, highlighting, with some tips on making her deep purples and blacks really pop, while maintaining the sharp details of her mask and her weapon and other accessories. So the goal is really to bring out both her intensity and her elegance, creating a miniature that really reflects her determination and her skill. So grab your brushes, it's time to bring Huntress to life as one of Gotham's most formidable heroes. So I'm painting Huntress with a bright undercoat. We're going to be painting bright and dark colors, so best to go bright to start from. Now if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to my channel and my Patreon page, as I'll be making a lot more videos like this. Now to start with the skin tones, I'm starting with Bugman's Glow. There is quite some skin showing here, the upper arm, the face. So try and figure out what part is skin and what part is not. The upper part of the legs as well. And we're going to be highlighting that with some Cadian flesh tone. When highlighting this first color, I'm painting more or less all of the upper area of skin, so everything that would reflect light from your chosen light source, either it be the sun or a lamp or whatever. So I'm focusing on the upper parts, the higher areas, and leaving the rest as a shade, but covering about 80% of the base color. Now the real highlighting starts with Chisel of Flesh, and for that I'm first outlining the parts that I want to have highlighted, and then kind of color it in, kind of blend those colors together by pulling a watered down version of your highlight tone from the darkest to the brightest area. So that way you get a nice transition from the darker to the brighter areas. Now once this is dry, we're going to be shading it with some Wayland Flesh shade. Thin it down just a little bit because it tends to be quite strong, and make sure that there are no puddles forming anywhere. Now we're going to be focusing on the suit, the inner suit, and for that I'm mixing Phoenician purple with some Abaddon black. I want it to be near black but with a hint of purple in there. Some places are quite hard to reach because part of her stomach is showing as a skin, and you do not want to mess that up. So be very careful when painting under the arm. That's a downside of these pre-assembled models, that there is no choice in how to approach it. Now there is quite some dark armor or clothing with this character. So take your time and pick out everything. We're going to be highlighting those armor later on by picking out some brighter details, but for now everything can go nice and dark. Then once done, you should have something like this. So the boots, the suit, shoulder pieces, gloves, looking nice already, but it's just a base color. So the next step is that we're going to use Nagaroth Night to paint those purple details on the side. There are some satchels, some pouches, the belt. We're going to give that all this nice purple color, and it really fits with the previous color that we painted. But it also kind of stands out. Now I'm going to use the same color Nagaroth Night on the cloak as well, and I'm going to try and stay away from the very edges, which I want to be white. but her cloak is kind of folding over itself, so it's kind of figuring out what part goes where, which is white, which is purple, but take your time, you'll get there. So in the end, I have something like this, and you can see that my white edges of the cloak are not really nice yet, so I'm gonna clean that up later on. And I also painted her mask, the pointy ears sticking out from there. Now once this is dry, I think I'm gonna give it a second layer because it's kind of shining through, and I want a nice coverage. With palette witch flesh, I'm painting in the eyes. And a tiny dot of Abaddon black to create a pupil. Sometimes it's easier to hold your model upside down, depending on if you're left or right-handed. You have to kind of find your position to paint in, especially when painting those tiny details or a horizontal line, for example. Alright, and when those pupils are done, we're going to continue with some gray sear on the arms and basically all the armor. And the reason we're doing this is that I want to create some purple details on this armor, but I want it to be very bright, and for that you have to have a bright undercoat. So we're going to do this twice to get the effect we're after. Kind of figure out where those details are. You can check some art on the web or make up something of your own. And at this stage I'm also cleaning up my cloak, giving it a nice broad edge of gray sear in this case. Once finished, you should have something looking like this. So you can see me having painted the legs, the arms with tiny details. The cloak, cleaned it up quite a bit. And it's time for the next step, which is Xerius Purple, which is kind of a more pinkish purple, which really works nice as a highlight to the previous color. So I'm focusing on the large surfaces on top, leaving the folds nice and dark, so we get a beautiful highlight from our previous color. The bottom part of the cloak I'm leaving as it is, so just the upper part, because that's the part that would reflect light, isn't it? You kind of stop here, more or less. Maybe some tiny details, but that's it. Furthermore, focusing only on the top. I'm also picking out the belt and the previously painted pieces on her hips, and I'm painting the white lines we painted before, well, not really white, gray sear lines, with this purple, which makes it brighter than it would be when painting over a dark surface. And I want these details to really stand out, so it's good to pay attention to it. It's double the work, but also double the result. Next I'm mixing some Cacophony Purple in the Xerius Purple to create an extra highlight. So at this stage we're focusing on edge highlighting, light reflection. So imagine where your light source is coming from and sticking to that side of the model gives beautiful highlights. We're now going to be using some ashen gray to create some highlights on the black parts of armor. And what we're doing here is kind of outline the brightest parts, so that would be pure ashen gray. And afterwards, thin down your paint just a little bit and pull from the dark towards the brightest area to create a nice transition from black to gray. There are tiny gold details on this model, which I'm going to be painting with XV88. I'm going for a non-metallic metal. So you start with some bright browns, or dark if you want to. It's a bit out of focus here, but there are two things hanging around her neck and a tiny detail on her belt. And then I'm going to be highlighting that with some Mazy Desert. Treat it like it's an edge highlight, like a reflective highlight. Of course you can use metal paints, but for these tiny details I like this more. Then some Sirius Purple mixed with Abaddon Black, mainly Abaddon Black to be clear here. I painted the hair. I wanted the hair to have a tiny purple hue in it, so not being entirely black. So I mixed it about 3-to-1, 3 parts black, 1 part purple. It's a bit out of focus here, sorry about that. I'm working on a new setup, so better movies are coming soon. Once that is done, I'm using pure Sirius Purple to paint the lips on her mouth. Gave her purple lipstick. It's a fun tiny detail, but it's the fun details that really matter, right? And then I'm highlighting the hair with Gene Stealer Purple, which is a nice grayish purple and really works with the color we used before. I'm focusing on the very tips, the ends of the hair, the edges on the front, and of course some shine on the top of her head. Then with some Apothecary White, I painted the staff. Create some nice subtle shades, after which I'm highlighting all my whites with White Scar. So the cloak, the staff, all the whites we still have left, I'm giving an edge highlight or a natural highlight as you can see here. Don't make it too bright, but there can be some difference to what you painted before. And then all that's left is the base. Mechanica Standard Grey I use as a primary color on this concrete slab she's standing on. The bases of these Gotham City Chronicles miniatures are not very great, actually. They are quite basic, so you either have to make something out of it yourself, by adding some details maybe, or accept that this is it. Null Oil as a shade. I'm also using a heavy shade here so those cracks are really visible. And finally, once this is dry, I'm dry brushing this with some gray cere. Kind of make some circular movement here. That way you delete the shininess of the wash we used before. It's going to be nice and matte again. And you get some nice bright details while still remaining those black lines in between. And that's it for Huntress. I really enjoyed painting her, and I hope you did as well, and I hope this video was of any help to you guys. Now if it was, please consider leaving a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and follow him on my Patreon page and on my YouTube page. I really appreciate your support, and I'd love to hear from you, and see you in one of my next videos in the near future. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.